A group of MPs says the funding used to pay for drugs for rare conditions should be ring-fenced. The call is from the Parliamentary Group for Muscular Dystrophy, and it comes after a special budget it calls for a special budget for treating rare diseases in England after that was merged with the overall NHS budget. MPs warn that changes to funding could lead to children being denied rapid access to new therapies. Well, a UK-wide strategy for dealing with rare diseases is due to be published by the end of the year. Scotland currently has a separate fund in place for so-called orphan drugs until April of next year. So let's talk to Alistair Kent, who's Director of Genetic Alliance UK. It's a charity helping patients suffering from genetic conditions. Thank you very much for being with us. Why should the budget for rare condition drugs be ring-fenced? What make the case for that?
Well, there is clearly a problem for patients with very rare conditions who need to be able to get access to innovative drugs that are very expensive in terms of the cost per patient treated, whereas the overall impact of the health service could be manageable. But whilst the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence is working out its new procedures, there is a problem for patients who need access now.
But this idea of ring fencing, I suppose it would suggest to some people that these conditions are sort of more important than others within the National Health Service. Obviously, times very tough. The NHS resources are continually under enormous strain for everybody.
Yes, of course, the NHS was set up to meet needs rather than simply to respond to those who happen to have cheap diseases. And the overall budget impact of responding to the needs of patients who would benefit from these novel therapies is containable if it's looked at in a global way rather than in the case of cost per patient. And many of these conditions, these drugs are the first time we've been able to do something to change the impact of the condition.
Just give us an idea of the sort of conditions we're talking about and what can be done with the drugs then.
Yeah, we're talking about conditions like muscular dystrophy, which you mentioned in your introduction, cystic fibrosis, inborn errors of metabolism like Gaucher's disease, things that affect very few people but actually are dramatic in their effect. They limit lives, they limit the quality of lives, and patients who are affected by them can end up dying very quickly because they are untreatable. So the impact of a drug that moves you from incurable to treatable is huge. And often these are being developed with substantial research and development investment, some of it raised by charities, some of it coming from the MRC, the National Institute for Health Research, and some of it from industry.
And is that why they're so expensive? Because they've taken so long to develop?
And because they're for treating a small population. So if you spent a lot of money to develop something that works for a small number of people, often fewer than 500 patients in England and Wales, then obviously the cost per patient is going to be very high. But the overall cost is manageable for the health service if the delivery is targeted to those patients who will really benefit from it.
All right, well, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming in, Alistair Kent there.
Thank you.